The Baltimore Ravens won a big game in Week 12 against the Los Angeles Chargers, and Nick Wright backtracked on some of his Lamar Jackson takes after Colin Cowherd roasted him, subtweeted him, and called him out. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens with a part of your day and your first listen each and every day for an available all podcasting platforms and video form on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe button. And also in audio form, you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast, plus more, bring you daily Ravens coverage, and we provide the analysis, updates, and so much more on the team. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Wednesday edition of the show, midweek, we have Sam Njoku in the house, back from Ravens Talk Pod. Usually Purple Friday, but we'll call this a Purple Wednesday. Why not? In the middle, we can go Victory Wednesday, we can go Purple Wednesday. The Ravens pick up a big one on Monday night, Sam, 30-23 over the Chargers. They certainly needed this game, and I think it was a big statement Baltimore put out there on primetime.
Yeah, the Ravens don't play on primetime. I was definitely expecting some fireworks, and we got plenty of that on the Ravens side of the ball. So definitely good to see. Definitely puts the league on notice. You'd love to see that if you're a Ravens fan. So definitely a big win for the Ravens. I think, a case can be made. This is one of the bigger games of the season for them, and they look forward to have 5 more games left to go. But, all signs point to another successful season, at least in the regular season for the Ravens.
Yeah, and again, I know a lot of people in Baltimore just want to get to the playoffs, and that's when it all counts. That is correct. But you got to establish habits in the regular season, and you have to punch your ticket to the dance. And obviously teams will be fighting for seeding, and we'll get into it in a couple of minutes, just how big this game was for the Ravens to actually win. But speaking of it being a big game, Colin Cowherd has been one of the biggest Lamar Jackson defenders after he was not early on in Lamar Jackson's career. Definitely backtracked on that, apologized, and now goes to bat for Lamar any chance he got or any chance he gets. He went to war for him again here because during the game on Monday night, he subtweeted one of Lamar's biggest haters in Nick Wright. Those two, Fox together, go on the shows together, this, that, and the other. Colin said, "This feels like a big game, right? So does this count for Lamar Jackson?" Just trying to keep track. That obviously being a shot at Nick Wright, saying Lamar can't win big games. He's been very vocal about that. And Nick and Colin Cowherd were on together on Tuesday, and Nick Wright was like, "Look, I don't get my feelings hurt very often." He did get his feelings hurt by Lamar a couple times, though. We're not gonna let that slide. But he did say, "I saw this subtweet; it just shot me right through the heart." And he said, "I never said Lamar couldn't win big games," which is just objectively false, by the way. His argument was, "Oh, he can't beat the Chiefs and he can't beat the Steelers," and I wasn't shocked that Lamar did this. Nobody was shocked Lamar did this. The thing with Lamar is that we know narratives are created, and then when they're not of use to anybody, more new narratives are created. We talk about this almost every week, Sam. Like, this is a recurring conversation that we have. It's just with different people. We did Stephen A. one week, then we do another guy another week, and here we are with Nick Wright. This does not necessarily shock me or surprise me, but I feel like with Lamar, I'm just glad it wasn't in this particular case. Lamar only threw for 177 passing yards. The Ravens won the game. That's fine. Lamar did his job. He didn't have to be Superman. And he won another big game. He wins another big game in prime time. And that is one of the things that has made Lamar so successful over the course of his career, is stepping up in the big moment. And like you said, Sam, the Ravens do not play on prime time. I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and that notion, that narrative that he can't win the big game is just utterly false based on his primetime numbers alone. I mean, he's just performed very well in primetime. I almost made a bet for Lamar throwing 5 touchdowns because he seems to do it every Monday night game that he has. So I'm not surprised by Lamar's performance. Definitely have heard the little chimes by Nick Wright in the past. Of course, he's a open Chiefs fan, so of course he's going to be a hater for one of his biggest obstacles to a three-peat being Lamar Jackson. But it's good that Colin Cowherd stepped up and took advantage of the moment to prop up Lamar, because Lamar does take criticism for these moments, not being able to win in the big games. And All he does is constantly prove people wrong. He's done it his whole career. And this is just another moment where he gets a chance to shut a critic up. And hopefully he has other opportunities from now to February to shut more critics up. But yeah, this is just another case of narratives that were unwarranted for Lamar, and Lamar having to shut critics up in that aspect.
Yeah, and Colin going to defense for him as well, saying, you know what Lamar is after a loss in some of these situations, 10-1. And talking about how it was a 2-cigar night for him, and he likes the Chargers, but he called the Ravens the adult Chargers. And so Jim obviously does not get the better of John in this situation. Older brother beats younger brother, and I've said it for the past 24 hours, 36 technically. I'm an oldest brother myself, Sam, and the older brother always wins. That's what it is. The older brother always wins, and that's what we saw with John and Jim. But credit to Lamar, did his thing, but didn't have to put on the Superman cape. And part of that was because Lamar handed it over to Derrick Henry. And that's part of the reason you bring in Derrick Henry, is to take some of that burden off of Lamar in some of these games, which I think will benefit him and benefit Derrick Henry. But it's always nice to see people come to the defense of Lamar, especially with that big game narrative. Sure, the playoffs, that has to happen. And getting to the big game, getting to the Super Bowl. But did we not see him blow out Houston in the divisional round? Have we not seen Lamar win a playoff game before that? People are acting like he's never won a playoff game before. I get it. You know, the playoff record isn't great. The stats aren't great. I'm not denying that. But there's more to the story than just that big thing. Got to do it in the playoffs too, for sure, more consistently. But in the regular season, when it counts, getting his team to where he needs to be, Lamar Jackson is really, really good at that. But speaking of how big this game was, Sam, I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with me on this, but I think that for me, this was the biggest one of the Ravens season. And not necessarily because it was the Chargers, right? The Chargers aren't the best team the Ravens have faced by a long shot this year. But 5 AFC losses would have been pretty tough. If you're talking about fighting for seeding in a tough AFC, you also climb your way back into the AFC North conversation because you took advantage of Jameis Winston's gift to you. Shout out to Jameis and everything that he is and everything that he does. Now, just not in the rematch against Baltimore. Let's not do that.
Hey.
But Jameis gave the Ravens a gift, and Baltimore did not squander the opportunity. Now, 1.5 back of Pittsburgh, and I think, like we talked about just a couple days ago, Sam, AFC North is not out of the reach at all for the Ravens. They are right back in the thick of it, and honestly, I personally think they're going to win it based off of how the results went this week. But how big of a win do you think this was? Because now they can also fight for different seeding, including maybe having an off chance getting the 2 seed if everything goes right for them.
Yeah, the 2 seed is not out of reach. I totally agree with you. This is the biggest win of the season. The biggest win would have been if they had beat Pittsburgh, but this will be the biggest win of the season. And I think that next Pittsburgh game will be the defining moment of the season for the Ravens in a lot of ways. But for now, yes, of course, this is a huge win that keeps them in the hunt for the 2 seed, which is, and we talk about this all the time. The 1 seed is the golden standard of the AFC. The 2 seed is like almost gold, half a gold, maybe like a quarter of a gold. This is such a huge thing to have that 2 seed. One, you get a bye. I mean, you don't get a bye, but you get a home field advantage, right, at least for one game. And you have a potential to get that AFC championship home bye if the 1 seed were to lose. So that's big. That's huge. As far as also facing the lower seed in the conference, it's just a big monument to reach, and the Ravens are hoping for that. I think the 1 seed is potentially out of reach with only 5 games left for the Ravens. So, but that 2 seed is definitely within the grasp of the Ravens. So this game is huge, and that Steelers game will be a monumental turning point. It'll decide the division for sure, and potentially seeding for sure. But yes, this Chargers game, they could not afford to lose it. And you saw the urgency with this Ravens team. They were not going to be denied. I think you saw it pretty quickly as this game progressed, that the Ravens were going to do whatever it took to make sure they ensured a win, including going for it on 4th and 1 inside the 20, which is bananas.
Man, I still can't go on. We're going to get to that as the show goes on, because, I mean, how can we not talk about that decision and some of the other decisions that were made in this game? But I get, Sam, that in Baltimore, there's a lot of, I guess people might be a little skittish about, getting a 2 seed or a 1 seed or home playoff games because of what's happened in 2019 or 2023. And you kind of see how the Ravens have won their championships over their franchise history. It's like, oh, they weren't this big number 1 seed with all of the targets on their backs. They went in as the underdog and they did their thing. I hate to break it to everybody, but there's going to be a target on your back when you have Lamar Jackson on your team. I mean,
Yes.
that's if you're the 6 seed, if you're the 1 seed, if you're the 7 seed, if you're it doesn't matter. You're going to have a target on your back when Lamar is there. But home playoff games are still very valuable. They are still very, very valuable. So if you get that 2 seed, you get like you mentioned, you get the home playoff game in the wild card. You get the home playoff game in the divisional round as well. And then if the 1 seed loses, like you said, all of a sudden you get to run the table potentially at your home stadium. So there's a possibility Baltimore could be a 2 seed, a 3 seed, a 5 seed, a 6 seed. I know a lot of people are licking their chops at that 5 seed based off how Houston is playing. But I want to win the North. Like if I'm the Ravens, I'm gunning for that division. I'm saying let me go out there and win it. So at this point, playoffs are playoffs. New season doesn't matter. Honestly, just get in and do your thing. At this point, seeding doesn't necessarily matter. I think honestly, you care a lot more about the matchup than you do about the seed. Like I'm confident in the Ravens going on the road and winning. I'm confident in the Ravens being at home and winning. It's just a matter of what matchup you get presented. But that's going to be the narrative, right? With guys like Nick Wright, it's playoffs. Can you win in the playoffs? Oh, well, he hasn't. Well, I'm just going to continue to hammer that home and keep talking about it until it doesn't happen. And then, like you said a couple weeks ago, Sam, and then when it does happen, something else will be created and we'll have to be talking about that too, which is just the cycle as it goes. But this was a massive win for Baltimore for so many reasons. And coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk a little bit more about why the Ravens actually were able to pull this one off, including Baltimore being able to kick a trend a little bit down the road in this game that didn't impact them as much as it usually has in weeks past. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 100 times your cash or in your game all season long on Prize Picks. I love going on Prize Picks, seeing everything they have to offer over there. You can now up to 100 times money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Use Tuesday Prize Picks discount select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. So this week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Thanksgiving free square. Tyreek Hill, he only needs to receive 0.5 receiving yard for the projection to hit. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And the show is brought to you by Skylight Frames. If you come from a big family like me, it can be hard and expensive to buy each person a personal gift for the holidays. And even if you have a big friend group, you want to surprise them all with something a bit more special and meaningful, you got a perfect gift for you over here. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. There's seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. It's satisfaction guaranteed, and we're confident you'll love Skylight with free 120-day returns. And it's a top-rated brand. Over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries. Recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and so much more. And now is a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. We're back to our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Allstriker still here with Sam Njoku. Sam, I think that one of the big things that everybody's talking about is the penalties for this Ravens team, the discipline and some of the sloppiness and lack of execution that we've seen out of this team over the course of the season. Certainly wasn't perfect on Monday night. I'm not going to sit here and say it was, but they did enough in this game with that. And we've heard Bill Belichick talk a lot about it. We've heard a lot of other people talk about it. You and I have talked about it, how the Ravens' biggest opponent is themselves sometimes, and they get it. Get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. You're going to be able to do a lot of good things. Baltimore, there were moments in this game where they couldn't do it and they stalled out on drives or they made a good play, but there was a penalty that negated it. Although that leg whip, we're not going to talk about that because that was just ridiculous. But I thought that this was a positive step in the right direction, and it feels weird saying that because they had 9 penalties and this was such a not flag happy crew that all of a sudden became flag happy in this game. But it just didn't feel like the Ravens were stepping on their own foot too much, and they were being able to execute at their own level without having other circumstances that they create interfere.
Yeah, especially on offense. On offense, I think the Ravens did a great job. We're not going to mention the leg whip like you mentioned, but there are a lot of things on offense that we saw this time that we didn't see last time, penalty-wise. So the Ravens definitely did their homework winning and try to shore up some issues that they've had previously. There are little things here and there, and I don't think some of the things that you see on a weekly basis are going to get fixed this season, but they have the talent to overcome it. They have the coaching to overcome it, so I'm not too concerned with it. But it was nice to see that the Ravens offense finally got back on track on the defensive side of the ball. Those penalties are just going to happen against these teams like the Chargers, who pass the ball a lot, definitely get you in open space and kind of force you to get hands in the receiver in order to prevent those big plays. So the refs are kind of picky with these flags a little bit. At least late in the game, I saw a lot of that ticky-tacky foul nonsense. But for the most part, I think the defense played what they've been doing the last 2 or 3 weeks. So definitely a good sight to see if you're hoping that this Ravens defense turns it around. There's more clues to lead you to believe that this defense is going to, in fact, turn it around. They have done such. So all in all, very good for this team to get it together after a very penalty hit week 11 where they had penalty after penalty after penalty, 12 penalties, I believe. Yeah. They still have the most penalties in the league, obviously, and some of that's just, accumulation at this point, and that might not be a trend they can buck. But as far as clearing things up and getting better as the season progresses, that's something they can do, and hopefully to get to that point where they're not penalized as much, especially as the postseason approaches. Every mistake counts, and you want to make sure you prevent those if possible.
And on that final Chargers drive, we just saw penalty after penalty after penalty, and some very ticky-tacky calls where it felt like the Chargers strategy was just, hey, screw it, a flag's down there somewhere. Let's just chuck the ball up and see what happens. And they were getting rewarded for it over and over again. So 9 penalties might be a little misleading in terms of the actual penalties that were, but there were certainly moments where Baltimore failed to execute and there were issues, but I thought it was at least a better performance. But another thing, Sam, that people are talking about is the Ravens and their slow starts on offense. Lamar talked about it after the game, said that they've been pretty horrible to start games recently. They've been held scoreless in 5 of their last 6 opening quarters, which is pretty telling when you talk about how it was early in the season versus how it is now. It feels like this team it's a spark team. They need something to happen, and then once they're rolling, they're gone. Like, you can't catch them. What they score on 5 straight possessions or 6 straight possessions, like, that's what happens. That you have, like, the Marlon Humphrey fumble against the Bengals, or the Marlon Humphrey interception, or, the 4th down conversion, I think, was a big spark for them in the Monday night game. Is it a big concern for you that the Ravens are starting so slow and they can't put good offensive drives together? Or do you feel at peace because they're at least making up the ground and getting back to everything as the game goes on?
Yeah, I'm not 100% concerned with it. You'd like for the Ravens to get off to a fast start. I think it does a lot for their team, especially on defense. If you get off to a fast start, you don't have the tendency to run the ball as much, right? And early on, you saw the Chargers take advantage of that early lead, run the ball often, try and keep the ball away from Lamar Jackson's hands and really push the envelope on the Ravens offense side to get things going. But, the Ravens offense is the Ravens offense. They're great. And, they're going to put points on the board. Just a matter of one. I'm very pleased that the Ravens decided to stick with the run game, even though they had a 10-point deficit. You know how the Ravens get in the past, that they have a double-digit deficit, to try and lean more on Lamar Jackson's arm. And they stayed the course. They continued to run the ball, continued to establish themselves, force their defense to cheat, and then give your receivers a chance to get off in open space. So definitely pleased with the Ravens' approach with that. If the Ravens continue that trend, even if they start off slowly, this team is still set for success because of their ability to run the football. It's unmatched. There's not a lot of teams out there that can stop the run consistently. Even that Pittsburgh Steelers game, Derrick Henry still ran for 5 yards a carry. Lamar Jackson ran for 11 yards a carry, Justin Hill running for 6.5 yards a carry. So there's still success being had in the run game, regardless of how good the run defense is. The Ravens just need to stay the course. Don't panic. I know you're down 10. A lot of football to go. Keep on doing what you're doing. And you saw what happened. The Ravens were able to jump off to an early lead, and then they took off from there.
If there's anything that at least the slow starts have given me, at least in terms of watching the team, Sam, I feel a lot more confident in them actually just being able to come back no matter what. Not that I wasn't before. Like, obviously, there was another narrative, speaking of national narratives, that was like, oh, the Ravens can't come back, get out to that 10-point lead, and, oh, they can't come back because Lamar can't do it, which was, again, never true in the first place. But, they go down 14 against Cincinnati. They go down 10 against Cincinnati. It feels like they're trailing. And more often than not all the time, more often than not, they're able to come back and they're able to do it. It doesn't have to take the entire game. Like they make it up in like a quarter and a half sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like they are fast at doing it because I think they're just such a momentum team, and that can be dangerous in certain aspects when it's all not going your way and you don't get that Marlon Humphrey fumble against Cincinnati that changes the tides. That's a pretty dangerous formula. But when you do, you can go all the way if you're getting the plays right. So I know that it's like a risk reward type situation, but the thing that I will say, and I think it might have been a month ago we talked about this, you and I, but I think that the Ravens are much more battle tested this year than they were last year. Last year, they were blowing out teams by 30 points every other week. And, yes. It was Tyler Huntley time, Josh Johnson time. Like you were getting the quarterback in, backup quarterback, and celebrating on the sideline. But they've had to fight for these wins. They've had to come back. They've had to hold on late. And I think that the lack of battle testedness maybe hurt them in that AFC Championship game when they were tested to their absolute limit. But I think it's going to help them so much, Sam, in the long run here when you get to the postseason, because they've just been through a lot more this year.
Yeah, and I mentioned it on my show last week. That you want that Steelers loss to happen now, not in the AFC Championship, not in the playoffs, not even in Week 17. Let it happen now. Let yourself understand, okay, there are teams that could beat me. The Ravens are dominating teams this year, a little less than before, but still, the Ravens, don't let that score fool you. The Ravens dominated the Chargers in that game, and it was, in my opinion, a 14-point win for them. But knowing that you have teams that can punch you in the mouth, knowing that you have opportunities to fail will definitely help forge this team. I think even if the Ravens were to struggle in the playoffs, I'm very confident in coming back because they have the AFC Championship in the back of their mind, and they have these challenges that they've presented to themselves this season to go off of to say, okay, we can definitely come back from this. We just had to stay the course. So I agree with you completely. This is a completely different team, a different mindset that they have coming into this season, and so far it's paid huge dividends for them.
And part of that, we talked a lot last year about the next man up mentality that the team had, especially when guys were going down and we saw Geno Stone step up and everybody step up to the plate when their number was called. Well, this year, particularly, I want to talk about this game. Roquan Smith does not play. You talked about the defense earlier, Sam, and Malik Harrison, couple of rough snaps early on in that game, couple of rough plays, but man, I'll give him all the credit in the world. He bounced back in such a dominating way. He was the best player on the field for Baltimore defensively by the end of it. And he talked about how much it meant to him and how hard he prepared all week for that moment after the game. And he played with such physicality. He was making plays left and right after his tough start. And I can't give enough credit to that linebacker by committee group that also included, I thought, a really nice showing from Chris Board. And them getting that production for a player in Roquan who obviously means so much, had his best game of the year against Pittsburgh. You and I were talking about how it would be a big loss, but there were ways for them to overcome. And they certainly did, thanks to the help of those two guys.
And this is one of the few moments in, I guess, this year where I really didn't need to look at much all 22 film. Malik Harrison popped up on screen during the broadcast almost instantaneously. He was very physical. He was not afraid to get in there. You could tell that he was running with purpose. He definitely enveloped the entire offensive philosophy of the Chargers, and he's part of the reason why the Chargers had to pivot to more of a passing attack. I think that and the J.K. Dobbins loss later in the game really forced the Chargers into a different type of mode. But yeah, Malik Harrison balled out. I did not expect him, I'll admit, to have the type of game that he did, but he definitely showed up and showed out, and that's going to pay huge dividends again for the Ravens moving forward, because if you're in a situation where you lose a linebacker or maybe you need to get a little more physical at the line of scrimmage during certain plays, you have a guy in Malik Harrison now that you know you can count on to get the job done. And that's all John Harbaugh is about. He's about giving guys opportunities when the moment strikes. He doesn't necessarily like to do it off of just talent alone. He wants to see it before giving it an opportunity. And that's just another instance of a player that will come in and play out for your team in the long run. So yeah, Malik Harrison definitely did his thing, balled out, and was a huge part. I would say maybe the biggest part in that Ravens defense doing what they're doing. But again, shout out to Zachary Orr. This is, in my opinion, the third straight week where this defense has come together and performed admirably, in my opinion. That Steelers game being the turning point, in my opinion. And in this game, another example of this defense getting it together. So Zachary Orr, a lot of heat on him because he's a first-year DC, and I've given him some grief a little bit about it, but he has turned the page, and this defense is starting to roll a little bit. There's a lot of game left to be played, this season, but they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you do what you're supposed to do, and you figure out some things along the way. You switch some personnel around, and you learn, right? I mean, this is Zach Orr's first season ever doing this. You know, you mentioned first time DC. That literally means first time DC. No college experience, no high school experience, no pro. This is it. This is the first go around for Zach Orr. So yes, there have been some struggles. You know, we're not going to sit here and deny that, especially for the defensive side of the ball. But I'm glad to see that there has been improvement and growth. Coming up in the final part of the show, we have to talk about those fourth down decisions from John Harbaugh, because some of them were just absolutely crazy. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats with live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. We start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet, and FanDuel has so many things that they offer over there. I love going on FanDuel, and for example, in the Ravens and Chargers game, if you had the over on Derrick Henry rushing yards, you're probably living large over there. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste 100. Make every moment more. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back, Locked On Ravens with Sam Njoku. I am Kevin Ostreicher, talking Ravens football. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form. We're now 400, less than 400 away from 10,000, so we're getting closer. Now I have to actually start looking for the Dixie Cup pattern outfit. I've been saying it, but now actually I have to make sure it's here by the time we hit it. So all the support on video has been incredible. Also audio form, obviously we started that off before video a couple years before. Thank you for that community. Also for all the support. Hit that follow button, subscribe button. I actually was talking about this yesterday, Sam. My first ever episode of this show, this will be a throwback name for you, was about Kari Vedvik. First. Wow. Remember that? Remember Kari Vedvik?
Yeah.
Ravens legend, Kari Vedvik. And then
legend,
my second ever episode, 2019, like August 2019, was Jadeveon Clowney. Is he about to become a Raven? Because that was when Seattle ended up getting him at that time.
Yeah.
And everyone was talking about, oh, where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? Baltimore. And then 2023, 4 years later, of course, he makes his long-awaited debut in that Ravens purple. So crazy how things work out sometimes. You talk about something 4 years, and then all of a sudden it happens one day. So maybe it'll happen again. Actually, it did happen with Desmond King. He's been linked to the Ravens for years, and now he's on their practice squad. So when the Ravens like a guy, they tend to go out there and make it happen more often than not. Right. But that almost Ravens team also hurts a lot of people. I know that almost, including Calais Campbell, who is now on it after not being on it, after being on it the first time. He's been on it twice now. So pretty rough over there. But let's get back into football, get back in on the Chargers game. We know that John Harbaugh is an aggressive coach. We know that this Ravens team is an aggressive football team. Going for it on 4th and 1 at your own 16-yard line, it is so crazy to me that I was not shocked when it happened. I looked at that down in distance. It was probably 4th and inches, half a yard to go, 2/3 of a yard to go. And I said, man, I think John Harbaugh's about to go for this thing. Because that was a momentum thing. You either punt the ball back and there's an opportunity for the Chargers to take some momentum in, or you can try to get the first down yourself and you control the game. And the tight end sneak to Mark Andrews. I think they're now 3 out of 4 times successful with that, if I'm not mistaken on the stats. Mm-hmm. But man, what's going through your head when they're lining up and, they come out of commercial and you say, well, this is surprising. They're going for this thing. I mean, take me through your emotions, because even though I expected it, my heart was still racing.
I was like, man, John Harbaugh will be crucified if this does not go the way he wants it to, because you're giving the ball, basically, you're giving 3 points away at minimum to the Chargers in the time in which the Ravens were down. I was thinking the worst case scenario, they have to get this first down. But on the other end, the analytical side is you got Derrick Henry, you got Lamar Jackson, you have these big body offensive linemen. Your team is built for 4th and 1. So I think John Harbaugh was very confident in that fact that he has that team. He knows his team better than anyone. He knows who the other coach is. So he knows that he needs to get points on the board and get this momentum going quickly. So I agree with the decision. I mean, I do. But at the same time, the risk and reward factor is just not there. There was There was no risk. The risk was just crazy. But, that's why John Harbaugh gets paid the big bucks. That's why I sit here and critique him instead of actually having to do what he does. And, there are very few coaches in the league that can do what John Harbaugh did. I think the last time I saw someone do something similar would be, I think, Bill Belichick with Tom Brady. It wasn't 4th and 1, but it was 4th and a certain distance with Tom Brady inside the 30 of the Patriots. So that was one time, and that didn't work out for Bill Belichick. But, of course, he's Bill Belichick. He gets away with it. John Harbaugh probably has that same stigma attached to him. Man, what a gutsy decision. And that was a turning point in the game, in my opinion. I think that touchdown belongs to John Harbaugh. He deserves all the credit. And I mentioned this on social media. If you're a person who has criticized John for whatever reason, this is not that time. John Harbaugh proving that he's one of the better coaches in the National Football League.
I agree with you. I thought that it was 100% the turning point in the turning point in the game, because I remember them going to commercial and they got the 3rd down stop, the Chargers defense, and they were pumping up the crowd and they were all hyped up. Oh, we just stopped Derrick Henry. We just stopped Derrick Henry. They're punting this ball away. We're going to get the ball back. And then you get that 1st down. It's so deflating. Like, if you're the Chargers, that is so deflating. And then they go down the field, and you're like, okay, what could have been if we just were able to – because Mark didn't really get it by all that much. It was really only like a yard he really picked up on a 4th and inches. So, hey, it's good enough for the 1st down. You take it. But if they had gotten that 4th down stop, the building would have gone crazy and all the momentum would have been on – you essentially gift the Chargers 3 points at least, if not 7. And you're sitting there – and yeah, you're right. It'd be a very different conversation if it was just a little bit shorter. But luckily, we don't have to talk about that. But this was the aggression, because it wasn't just then. It was multiple 4th and 1s, multiple high leverage situations. And even on 3rd down, they were over 50% on 3rd down for the game, 8 of 15. It just felt like in most, not all, but most high leverage situations they were faced with on Monday night, Sam, they were executing at such a high level, something they did not do in Pittsburgh. And it made a ton of difference.
Yeah, and I mentioned it last week. The Ravens played tight against Pittsburgh. They played as if they were on the same level playing field as Pittsburgh. And I think this time they realized, okay, well, we're the better football team. Let's play like we're the better football team. Let's take chances. Let's move the football down the field. We know we have that capability. And if we fall short, we fall short. But we're not going to lose this game. They're going to have to beat us. So that's the approach that the Ravens took, and it paid dividends for them now. And this is another situation that's going to, I believe, pay huge dividends for the Ravens later on. John Harbaugh's not afraid to go for it on 4th down, especially in big moments. So there are big moments coming for the Ravens in the postseason. I think that this will serve as a positive light for the Ravens. I think this will give him the confidence to do it. Hopefully not inside their own 20 in the postseason, in the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl or whatever. But the Ravens do have that confidence in them, and they deserve it, because as far as short yardage situation goes, there's not a better team in football at converting than the Baltimore Ravens. So definitely a good job for the Ravens to get it done. But as we mentioned, you don't convert that, it is a entirely different conversation that we're having this week.
I think the most telling thing about just how wild John Harbaugh is during his halftime interview when he walked back out for the 3rd quarter, he was like, how far back were we again? I just thought we were going to get it. Yeah. I'm just like, this man's going to go for it at like his own 8-yard line, and everybody's going to be freaking out. I mean, I know I will if that happens, but it's going to be some crazy thing that happens, and I don't even know what to expect. But this is an aggressive football team. They play the numbers, and honestly, apparently, John Harbaugh's comments, they just played the vibes, and I guess it worked. So they were a vibes team on Monday night, and it worked out for them in a big way. Philadelphia Eagles coming to town, week 13. Short week for the Ravens. Not a lot of people are talking about it. Short week for Baltimore this week. Going to be one heck of a game. You got Derrick Henry versus Saquon, or Saquads Barkley, if you prefer that nickname. But you got Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. You got a heck of a defense over there in Philly, and a defense that is playing much, much better, like we've talked about in Baltimore. Based off of everything, I know you've done a little bit of deep diving in here, not a ton, but a little. What do you see in this Philly matchup for the Ravens, and do you like what you see so far?
I like what I see so far. I'm not going to even sugarcoat it. I like what I see so far. This is very reminiscent of the Denver Broncos game, in my opinion, the things that I'm seeing from this defense of Philly. The run game of Philly can be the turning point. I saw some good things from the Ravens as far as run support on the defensive side of the ball, but there are also some things that I saw that I think that the Eagles can potentially exploit. So finding out if Roquan Smith is going to be ready to go will be a huge factor in how I think the Ravens decide to attack this offense. If Roquan Smith goes, I don't know, Philly fans, it could be one of those games, but without Roquan, I think that the Eagles do have some opportunities in open space to give Saquon an opportunity to make plays. That's probably not going to be enough against this Ravens team. I think if the Ravens can start getting some points on the board early, forcing the ball out of the hands of Saquon and into the hands of Jalen Hurts, this may be a conversation where we're talking about how this pass defense has performed or improved. So the matchup favors Baltimore. I mean, there's just no way to sugarcoat it. It is in Baltimore as well, which also favors the Ravens. The Eagles are no slouch, but I think Eagles fans need to keep in mind their schedule has been pretty soft so far. They've played the Bucs, they've played the Packers. No other team in their schedule has a winning record. So I don't really understand if Eagles fans are thinking this is going to be a cakewalk, why that would be, because they haven't had much to show for it in terms of competition. This will be a great litmus test for the Eagles in terms of what they're able to do on both sides of the ball. But for the Ravens, it's just another opportunity to showcase how dominant you are. So I'll be interested to see how this plays out. But if you had to ask me early on in the week, I think this favors the Ravens greatly, and it'll be up to the Eagles to find a way to stop this Ravens offense.
All right, I love it. Isn't that how it usually goes?
Yeah,
where
it's
essentially a team plays Baltimore, but before they've racked up some wins, but the schedule's pretty soft, and then they play the Ravens, who are a much tougher test than who they've played. And they're like, oh, this is what playing a real football team feels like. And then the Ravens humble them a little bit. So hopefully that is the same trend we see against the Eagles here on Sunday. Big 425 matchup for the Ravens.
Yeah.
So last time that was a thing, Dallas, which I know some people want to get out of their mind after how that game ended. But hey, the Ravens won. As long as they win, everything is okay. But Sam, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much again for hopping on. Tell people where they can find you and what you're working on ahead of this game against Philly.
Awesome. First of all, I forgot to mention NFC opponent. Lamar doesn't lose against NFC teams, so definitely something the Eagles fans need to watch out for as well. But you can find me on Twitter at Ravens Talk Pod. You can also find me on YouTube at Ravens Talk Podcast, Instagram at Ravens Talk Podcast, and TikTok Ravens Talk Podcast as well. We do podcasts every week at least to showcase what happened in the previous game and look forward to what's up ahead. I also co-host the AFC North Roundtable. We meet every week on Wednesday. We talk about the different teams in the division, so tune in for that as well as I give my synopsis of what the Ravens are doing compared to the other teams in the division.
Man, Sam is a hard worker. You can hear he's also very knowledgeable about multiple things, football obviously being one of the big things as well. We talk with him every single week here on Locked On Ravens, so be sure to support his other work over at Ravens Talk Pod, AFC North Roundtable. He does absolutely incredible stuff. So links in the description down below. Appreciate everybody for tuning into Locked On Ravens today. We'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens, of course, so be sure to stay tuned. Hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. Follow along and subscribe in audio form as well. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.